So today for our seminar speaker, we have Anna Ball. She is the chairman and CEO of the 119-year-old Ball Horticultural Company, which specializes in all aspects of horticulture, including breeding, biotechnology, production, and marketing of hybrid flower seeds and other floriculture crops. Privately held and now in its fourth generation of family management, Ball Horticultural Company has 4,000 employees and operates in over 20 countries worldwide. Anna received her B.A. degree from the University of Colorado and her M.B.A. from Northwestern University. She is a trustee of the Morton Arboretum, and head of the G. Carl Ball Family Foundation. She is the chairman of Career Vision, an organization focused on the discovery and development of human potential through the development and delivery of aptitude testing and career exploration. Anna lives in Glen Ellen, Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Great, thank you. So nice to, wow, this is great. This is quite a turnout. I'm thrilled to be here. I was down here a long time ago before there was one grape plant in all of Texas, and now it's like viticulture everywhere. It's really interesting to see the change. So, but I did get a bag of pecans when I came before, and I got another one here. If I give a good talk, she's going to give me another bag of pecans. So I'm going to get another bag. So pecans have stayed, wines come in, and ornamentals have stayed. So that's good. So we're very happy about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I was asked to talk about innovation in horticulture. So I'm going to talk a little bit about innovations in horticulture, explain what we do as a company, because what we do as a company is really explains also kind of horticulture, because the horticulture industry, because we sort of cover all aspects of it. And then I'm going to talk about some trends and a little bit about some management philosophies that we have, because I think there's some, this is a little bit mature group that deals with a bunch of things. So I hope it's interesting. And please ask me questions, because I love questions. I get really tired of hearing myself talk all the time, which I can do. But anyway, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go like this. So, okay.
Technical support is here. Hold on.
Technical support. We tried it and it worked, right?
Yes.
Mason? Oh, I don't know what this is. Okay, here we are. Okay, thank you very much. Are you the technical support all the time?
I do everything.
Okay, so as Sydney said, we're in our fourth generation. My daughters joined the company, so we're very happy about that. We're the last privately held horticulture company that does what we do in the world, sadly, but that's okay. We're fighting on. We want to stay as a family business. My grandfather started the company in 1905. He was a cut flower grower and grew cut flowers for the Chicago market, shipped them down on the train, and got interested in breeding, and then started exchanging seed, because flower seed has one big advantage. It's really tiny. Like you can hold in your hand all the begonia seed for the whole state of Texas, probably, right, guys? And so it was exchanged a lot with other breeders, and that's really how he got into the breeding. So our mission is to color the world, and just to define horticulture, and this is something that in the last 24 hours since I've been here, there's a lot of ways to define horticulture, right? I mean, you guys do everything: potatoes, roses, wine, whatever. This is the way we define horticulture for our company. And I know there's lots of other parts of horticulture, but the things I'm going to talk about are really in these areas. So just to be clear on how we're defining horticulture, it's really ornamentals. So what do we do as a company? We do three major things. We breed new varieties of flowers. That's what we do. That's what we love. That's what our heart is. We're always coming out with new varieties. We love plants. We love flowers. We love to create new varieties, whether they be things that are more disease resistant, or things that are prettier, or things that last longer, just all sorts of things. So that's a basic thing that we do, is breed flowers. Then of those flowers that we breed, we have to produce the seed or the cuttings or however it's propagated, tissue culture, whatever. So we have to produce those things, and we do that mostly offshore. That's why we're in so many locations. We'd love to be in one location in Chicago, but you can't do that. So we have to produce in other countries. So we also have production is our biggest. That's where most of the 1,000 of employees or however many, that's where most of them are, in those production locations. And then the third thing we do is distribution. So we sell to greenhouse growers all over the world through different distribution companies, our own and other companies. So those are kind of the three things that we do. And those are three of the main aspects of horticulture. And there's jobs and trends and everything in each of those three areas. Okay, so we do have some consumer-facing brands. Some of you may recognize some of these, but we do not sell directly to the consumer. We leave other people who understand the consumer a lot better than we do to do that. So we deal mainly with the wholesale part of it. So that's what we do. So how do we do it? We do it through our global locations. And it looks like a lot, and it is a lot, but it has to be that way because you can't ship plants, across borders, right? So we have to be in each country. If we're producing plug seedlings to sell to growers in Korea, we can't import them. We have to produce them there. So we have to have all these locations, which is a big challenge because our philosophy is to make sure that each of these locations is run by a native from that country. Very difficult to do. We don't export, Americans or whatever to grow. So that's what we do, and we have different locations that do different things: breeding, production, and distribution. So plant breeding is something that we do. We've got 35 plant breeders worldwide in these locations here, and that's really the basic. That's where it all starts. It all starts with plant breeding, and these guys are very creative. They're very innovative. They're very independent thinking. Sometimes they're not easy to manage because they're artists, right? But they're great, and they come up with all sorts of cool stuff. So that's where it all starts with the plant breeding. I know I talked to a couple of you that were interested in plant breeding earlier. So it's a great career if you have the right aptitudes and personality for it. And we do a lot of advanced research. We have a lab that Amit visited recently in Chicago, where we centralized it, and we do these functions there. We also have satellite locations in some of our other places. So it's sort of a hub and spoke type of thing. A lot of this is support for the breeders, right? So molecular markers, all sorts of things that we do that support the breeders, try to make their job easier, try to not have it be 10 years to come up. We used to brag it takes 10 years to come up with a new variety. And I realized that's really ridiculous. Why would you brag about that? It shouldn't take that long, right? So we're trying to shorten that down. So I never say that anymore because it's embarrassing that I ever said it. Proudly, I guess. So these are the kind of things we do, and this is a very important part. Our board of directors 10 years ago or so said we really have to pump up the investment in this area, and we did, building a whole new lab and really put a lot of investment in it. That's the new lab. Makes it look a little bigger than it actually is, but it's quite nice. And we tried to make it a lot of glass so you could see what's going on. Then we have to produce. We have to produce the seed, make the seed, take the hybrid parents, male and female, cross them, harvest the seed. It's all hybrid production. Extremely labor intensive, right? And this is where most of our employees are in these countries. It's very, very, you have to have everything very clean. We're always worried about diseases, particularly in the vegetative production locations. So there's a lot of technology that goes on in this production, which is a big, big effort of ours, big challenge. And then we have distribution. So sales reps, customer service, seed inventory, all the things you do to distribute to growers, to greenhouse growers. So we also do it, how do we do it? We do it through our seeds of success. So we don't believe in employee handbooks, a bunch of rules, bureaucracy. I hate bureaucracy. I've spent my whole life fighting bureaucracy. We try to say, this is our employee handbook. We have these 5 things. When you make a decision, use these 5 things. And that's how you make your decision. So this is what we tell employees. We show our customers this. This is the way we really guide the company. And it's super, super important, particularly the first one, never sacrifice the long term for the short term, because we want to be in this industry for another 100 years. And our competitors now are owned by private equity or public companies, and they can't make those decisions long term like we can. So this is super, super important for us. The other interesting thing is run to the hard stuff. We tend to do things, we like to do things that other people maybe can't do and solve problems that are really tough problems. It's just fun, it's satisfying. So we do it. We try to run to the hard stuff. And it's a challenge, but that's what we do. So that's sort of how we do it. That's what we do. That's how we do it. So now, like, why do we do it? And I ask myself all the time, like, why are we doing this? You know, it's a really good question, by the way, to ask yourself every once in a while. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because it forces you to think. So why are we doing it? We tell employees this. Why are we doing that? Why do we get up every day and work so hard and really do all this effort? And we do it because we believe, this is so true, we believe in the power of plants. Plants have the ability to, and I'm just speaking ornamentals now. You get into vegetables and some of the other things, it's very true, but very different. They have the power to transform people, and we really believe this, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So I'll just run through these quickly. I feel a little embarrassed doing this for you because you guys know all this already, but I'll just review it. What do plants do? They regulate the climate, and there's lots of research on ornamentals that prove all these things. And Charlie Hall has done a lot of this research, and a lot of this came from him. So it's right here. You guys are right in the middle of it. It reduces crime, improves productivity, classrooms, detoxifies the air. Lungs for cities, that's a big one, or the urban areas, improving property values. I have a very interesting story in Korea where we reduced the litter in an area that was total surprise that they didn't know was going to happen. They thought it would just make retail sales go up, but actually it reduced the litter. Because if you're in a nice area, you just don't throw stuff on the ground, right? If you're in a junk area, you throw stuff on the ground. So this is like really cool. I love that one. Make people happy. You know about this one. This is a big one. Wellness. That's a big one. Retail sales, that's been proven over and over again. So, oh, I shouldn't have shown this because I should have asked the question first. We were talking about this earlier. So this statement was made to me a few years ago, and I have told a lot of people this statement, and I'm telling you today this statement. And I really want somebody to say, nope, there's another one, and it is XYZ. Plants are the only consumer product that you can buy in the whole world, right? You can buy anything. You can buy clothes, you can buy furniture, you can buy whatever, food, whatever, that after purchase goes on to improve the environment by growing and releasing oxygen and all the things I just talked about, right? There's no other product you can buy that does that. And I really want, honestly, I want somebody to, because I don't know if that's true, but I saw that and I thought, I said, it can't be true, right? There must be other products. I couldn't think of any. And then the longer I can't think of any, the more excited I get, because if that's true, that's like, wow, are we lucky to be in this industry or what? That's the coolest thing in the world. So think about it, right? No, seriously, if you think of something, somebody and I talked to before had an idea, but it didn't quite work. So I've never had anybody tell me anything. So if you can think of something, you tell me. But if you can't, I think we should repeat this from the rooftops and scream it and tell everybody that this is really important. Okay, so I thought I'd just go over a few past innovations to get, I'm trying to stick to my innovation theme, which was not easy to do. But past innovations, and then talk about some of the current innovations, okay? Plastic. The way I look at it, the past 50 years, there have been like one big innovation every decade. And plastic in the industry, it used to be, you know, you wrap things in newspaper and you couldn't ship it, and it just plastics changed everything. You could ship things, they were uniform, it just changed everything. It was great. I love plastic, by the way. I know you're not supposed to, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. In the 80s, we came up with singulated seedlings or plugs. For the ornamental part, and for the vegetables, this is super important because it just changed everything. The way plants were started, the use of seed, it just changed the whole industry. And it made it a lot easier to get into the industry. It lowered the barriers to entry in the industry because if you bought these, they were going to survive. If you were a grower and you had to sow seed, that was much trickier. So it helped people to just get into the industry easier. Getting into the mass marketers, Lowe's came in first in the 80s, then Home Depot and Walmart. Absolutely revolutionized, changed the whole industry, and for the better, because it exposed all these people who used to. So before, you used to have to go to a garden center to buy a plant, and the garden center maybe wasn't on a street that you ever went to, right? So you never thought about it. And then all of a sudden, you're going to Walmart, and you see plants there. Plants, wow, I never thought of that. So you bought them, and it just exposed plants to people who had never thought about it before. At first, when they did it, they were pretty lousy at it, to be honest, but they've gotten much better. And now you can go buy plants at Home Depot that are pretty darn good, right? Who shops at Home Depot, Lowe's, and Walmart for their plants? Who shops at a garden center, independent garden center for their plants? You can do both, by the way. In the spring, I go like a bunch of places, but yeah, so they're both good. They both have their place, and they both are important. Vegetative cuttings. The whole idea of propagating from vegetative cuttings and the way that's been systemized and professionalized and everything, huge deal. Everything used to be from seed most of the time, and then cuttings was a big one. Mixed containers. In Australia, they still don't sell mixed containers. It's the weirdest thing. We've been trying to get them. Look at these gorgeous things. How could you not want to buy that? And they don't want them. It's very odd. There's something weird about Australia. But anyway, mixed containers, this is the trend that turned the diggers into decorators, right? People used to go in the yard and dig and plant things. And then now we sell mixed containers, and they don't touch the dirt, they just decorate. So diggers to decorators, that's what this was. Huge deal. Affected every single part of the industry. So you can sort of look, diggers to decorators, independent garden centers to big box stores. Every time a country gets, we used to say every time a country gets a McDonald's, then we go there. Because you need a middle class to have a bedding plant or a pot plant or a cut flower industry, right? And McDonald's does all the research. So Jan Petronella here and I would figure out which country had a McDonald's, and we'd go and open up a place there for years because they figured it out. So, China got a middle class, India got a middle class, Korea. So then, okay, people have enough money to buy plants to beautify their environment. That's super important. And then a small range, now there's so many varieties, it's ridiculous, actually, it's unconscionable. So let's talk about some current innovations, of which there are a few, and I'm sure there are many more that maybe you could talk about. Actually, before that, I just want to say, these are all sort of going on now. Plants for beauty. It used to be that everything was just beautiful. And the first time I really got sort of thought about this was a long time ago, when I had a friend come in to the office, and she wasn't in the industry. She was like a real estate person. And we had a new variety. It was a New Guinea. And I said, Julie, look at this New Guinea. Isn't it gorgeous? Look how the color shimmers, blah, 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 blah. And she said, wow, that's really pretty. She said, but what else does it do? And honestly, I was speechless, which I'm never speechless. What else does it do? She actually said that. And I looked at her and I said, I actually never answered her. And that was the first time I thought, what else does it do? So plants, I mean, I don't know. I was shocked. And then I started thinking, well, plants do other things. And then that's not why I didn't start it, but that got me thinking plants do other things, right? So that's plants for beauty, plants for purpose. That's what we talk about all the time now. It's still important that they're beautiful. I mean, don't get rid of that, because beauty is something that we all need as people and humans, and maybe, you know, in the end, that's like very important to me, but we have to talk about the other stuff. So formal, everything's informal now. The gardens, the native, you know, everything looks informal now, which I love, by the way. Production, everything was focused on production a few decades ago. Now it's all about logistics. Everything is about logistics. How do you get the plants from here to there in a good way? Growers always use their gut instinct, and now they don't necessarily use AI, but now they have to use computers, and that's a big trend, which has changed. And also the focus always was on the grower, and now the focus is on the consumer. So these are trends that are good. So some of the automation, some of the innovations, one is automation. Automation's been going on for a while, but it's getting really cool in a lot of the growers. You can Steve was saying you can use on your phone. You can be at your home and change the climate control in your greenhouse. You can move products around. It's really getting cool, and it's also the cost is coming down, so it's not just the big mega growers who have automation. So automation is super important. There was a thing that came out just this January from the Oaklands guys that are in England, and they say the #1 innovation in horticulture, and this is all aspects of horticulture, this is also all the fruits and the vegetables and all that stuff, is automation. And they have a huge report that was super interesting about the automation and how it's affecting. So we need engineers, right? We need engineers in this industry, because if you're a plant person, you know, I mean, you can kind of figure out how to automate, but let's get some engineers in here. We really need that kind of thinking in our industry. This is our new, so we have innovation and automation. So for years, we had a seed room where you walk around. It's called a grocery store. So you know how you walk around the grocery store, there's aisles, right? So you walk around, you have a list, mustard, bread, right? You walk around, get the product. We're changing our seed, pulling the seed, you know, here's a packet of marigolds, here's a packet of this. We're changing that to the opposite, which is you stand in one place and the product comes to you. It's called, if anybody's in logistics, they'll know what it's called. I forgot what it's called. It's called people to product, product to people. It's what Amazon does. So we're gonna change that. Nobody else in the industry has it. I'm very nervous about it, but ask me in a year how it works. So it's very automated, and we're gonna do that because we can't get seasonal labor, and we're a very seasonal business. This is a machine. This is not us, but this is the same machine we're getting in a different industry. I'm sure some of you have seen these things. You can sit there like forever and just watch them, feel like an idiot, you know, watching these robots getting I love to do that, getting the cuttings, and it's super fun to do that. So there's a lot of it. Really interesting stuff. This moves plants around the greenhouse, you know, and you don't even have to be there. I mean, in Holland, you walk into a big greenhouse and you can't find anybody. There's nobody there. It's all automated. Another innovation is biotechnology. It's often confusing what to call this, but we'll call it biotechnology. So we're doing a lot of work in this. You guys are doing that right here in this building. It's you know, 30 years ago, biotechnology came into the grain industry, you know, corn and all these big crops where they could afford it. It's just recently been affordable for. The problem with flowers is you have a whole bunch of varieties. No variety is over, you know, 2% of the whole market. It's really ridiculous. So if you look at the huge crops, they're not even that big because there's so many. So the huge crops are like roses. In bedding, it's like petunias, maybe. But there's so many other things. The petunias even isn't that big. In cut flowers, you have, you know, I don't know, Lysianthus, something. Nothing is that big. So to apply biotechnology to just a small market has been too expensive, but it's getting now where we can afford it. So these are the things we do. I should have you guys give this talk because you know more than I do, and you're doing some of these things here. But they're very important again for the breeders. And one of our big success stories is, you know, impatiens were wiped out a few years ago. I don't know how many of you know that. Like all over the world, the same year, they disappeared. They died. From South Africa to US to China to wherever because of downy mildew. So it took us 10 years. I should be embarrassed by that. But it took us only 10 years to come up with a new series that is resistant. And we did, and it's called Beacon. And now growers can grow impatiens again, and you can buy them for your shade because there's not enough things for shade, right? And so we use the molecular markers and the bioassay for that. And you can see that, I don't know what this means, but Matt gave this to me and said, you should show it. You can see how Beacon is different from the non-Beacon, showing the disease resistance and what is in there that's disease resistant. So this is laboratory stuff that a lot of people are very drawn to, that's super interesting. And there's a lot of opportunities in this area. We also came up by using these 4 markers, virus testing, TC, and TC activities. And there was one guy who's super interested in tissue culture. I don't know if he's in the room now, but, and this is the black Angelonia, which I love. I have it in my yard. And if you have a container and you put the black Angelonia in it, and then you put some white Angelonia in or some white, anything white, it just looks, huh? Or Dusty Miller, yeah. It just looks fabulous. So black, like who wants a black flower? I don't even like black. I don't own anything black. I don't wear black, but I love this black flower. It's really cool. And that was done through biotechnology. So innovations like disease resistance and all those kind of things are in all these colors we got. So it really, and Angelonia is very heat resistant. It's a good product for Southeast Asia and places that and Texas, yeah. And also we get a lot larger flowers. And if you get larger flowers, that means it's a tougher plant. It can withstand, you know, worse conditions and drought and whatever. So it's just a tougher plant. So Angelonia is really, I love Angelonia. And then Vinca, this again was disease resistance. Vinca has all sorts of problems. And we did some really cool work with disease resistance on Vinca Phytophthora. I'm not a big Vinca fan, but a lot of people are. In Texas, especially because it's, I know, shouldn't have said that. Okay, so these are some of the other things we're looking at through bioengineering. Bioengineering now, that's different than biotechnology, right? So you have bioengineering, you have CRISPR, you have all this gene editing stuff. These are some of the things we're looking for with bioengineering. New pigments, dwarf plants, new scents, as in roses. We talked about that today. Disease resistance, flower longevity, all these things that not only are good for the consumer, but they're good for the grower, and they're good for the you know, just for the environment if you don't have to use all these chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So and you know, this is a transgenic tomato. It's not ours, but no, actually why it's even in there. Okay. Does anybody know what this is? Huh? Glow in the dark petunia. Did anybody hear about glow in the dark petunia? Did anybody buy it on the internet for $25 a buck? Yeah, they look terrible. It's a terrible variety. We've been working with these people. It's a terrible, they used some old petunia variety that's horrible, and they didn't get enough glow. So you put it in the basement, close the door, your eyes have to adjust for 3 minutes, and then you look and maybe you see a little glow. But that's okay. It's a first product. It's a lousy variety. It's not enough glow, but it's got potential, right? I mean, you can think about what you could do with glow in the dark. So I mean, I'm excited about all these things. I think it's really cool. I would love to have glow in the dark plants. All sorts of, you can think of all sorts of things, walkways, street lights, no more street lights, you could just, your mind can go crazy. So this stuff is super, super interesting, and there's lots of opportunities. So we just gotta take advantage of them. Okay, the third area, and this isn't really innovation, but it's this little pet thing of mine. It's called plant intelligence. So about 50 years ago, there was a book written called The Secret Life of Plants. Maybe Dan, you remember. I remember it sort of vaguely. You remember it? It's the one where everybody started playing Mozart for their it was for their foliage plants. These guys were talking about how plants were so smart and everything. It turns out that the book was a sham. The two guys that wrote it were just made it up, a lot of it. That book, because they got these guys, that book set the study of plant intelligence back. No grants were given, no work was done. For 50 years, nobody did work on plant intelligence, which I just, I could strangle those guys. So what happened is all this time passed, and now people are starting to say, because they've forgotten about the book, now there's money going into plant intelligence work. And I'm kind of an obsessive reader, so I read 11 books on plant intelligence. So fun. I just went through them. Maybe some of you have read some of these. Actually, the best one's not on there because I just read it, but called Light Eaters. But anyway, so I read all these books. These are very recent books because a lot of them are Italians, real interesting writers. And they're just doing all this work. And you've heard a lot about it, right? How the trees communicate with mycorrhizal fungi underneath, and how the tomato plant emits a chemical, and Morton's makes the caterpillars eat each other and all that. I mean, there's some really wild stuff going on, but it's really serious, and it's serious this time, and it's super interesting. And I think what's going to happen, we talk about plant blindness. I think what's going to happen, if this gets sort of mainstream, and if a lot of it turns out to be true, that people's perception of plants is going to change. I use the octopus, and my daughter, she just goes crazy if I even think about ordering octopus anymore, because octopuses, whatever, those things, they're apparently super intelligent, and they mourn their dead and all this kind of stuff, So you can't eat them anymore. So if people find out that plants have intelligence, not like our intelligence, but a different kind of intelligence, it might get rid of plant blindness. This is my hope. I know it's far-fetched, but I'm hopeful about it. And so anyway, so the main thing they can't figure out is all intelligence with all, although that woman was talking about invertebrates, that last woman, that was amazing. That all intelligence as we know it, everything goes through the brain, right? So everything goes through the brain and then back down again. So if you touch something, if you're thinking about something, everything, it's a centralized, we're centralized. I'm getting into areas I don't know. But the plants are not centralized. They don't have a brain. So really all these books are trying to figure out, how do plants have intelligence without a brain? And that's what they can't figure out. But somebody's going to figure out, and they could be sitting in this room, actually, because you got to be young, and you got to be smart, and you got to be ambitious, and maybe you can figure this out. So I think, to me, that's super exciting. I can't get many people excited about it, but I'm excited about it, so that's that. Okay, the main things about innovation, just to close on innovation, and I've read a lot about innovation. We've done a lot of innovation in our company, and what people forget, including me, is that innovation takes a lot of time. That's why I know I'll be long gone before they figure this plant intelligence things out, because things just don't happen that quickly, right? It takes a lot of time, much more time than people think, and it takes a lot of collaboration. And nobody really deep down likes to collaborate. I finally figured that out. Collaboration is like people want to do something themselves, right? So they can be like the guy that did it. And collaboration is hard. You have to think about it. You have to work with it. You have to get along with people. It's is a much bigger effort. So these are the two things that you can't have innovation without time and collaboration, which is why there was no innovation during COVID, by the way. It's impossible to innovate over Zoom. You cannot innovate over Zoom. It just, collaboration doesn't really work in a deep sense. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few things. Now, Haley, you're standing right in front of the clock. You didn't know it's on the floor, did you? No, I'm trying, I have to judge my, okay, so I'll run through a few challenges and opportunities in horticulture that you can be talking to some of the younger people about, some things that they can do. Sustainability is on everybody's mind. Everybody's talking about sustainability. I've got a kind of a different view maybe of sustainability, but it's a big issue. And these are the things that we talk about in the industry that we're struggling with. We've done a lot of work recently on sustainability in our country, and all those locations that you saw on the map, they're all working in their own way on sustainability, which is different for every country. The issues are different for every country. It's amazing. So, so sustainability is a big deal. But I think the biggest way to be more sustainable is, sure, we should get rid of plastic, don't use so much peat, blah, blah, blah. But to me, the biggest way to increase sustainability is to not throw much stuff away. Because all that stuff we're throwing away in the industry, all the energy has gone into it already, all the effort has gone in, all the peat has gone in, all the everything's gone into it, and then you throw it away. That's totally unsustainable. So 38% of all the vegetables, you guys might know this, but I read, in fact, I think it's more. I read it's 38% of all food gets wasted. I think it's more than that. I really do. But anyway, 38%, that's a lot, right? So think of that. If you just got rid of that, you wouldn't have to worry about the plastic anymore. That's huge. And we throw a lot away in the industry, a lot less than we used to, but we still throw a lot away. We call it shrink. We're always talking about shrink the shrink, shrink the shrink. So those are vegetables, but that was it. Anyway, that's our product, unfortunately. So our sell-through in the industry, what we talk about in the particularly the pot plant, bedding plant industry and the cut flowers is sell-through and how much stuff gets sold through. And I don't know. I think it's a little better than that now. What do you guys think? More or less the same? Yeah. So think of the 28% that's dumped. It started with our breeders. It was produced, maybe seed in Costa Rica, shipped up, put through all this process, shipped to a grower, heat was applied. I mean, that's just dump. That's totally unsustainable. So we're trying to get that down for everybody's benefit. So demographics. So if you look at flower breeding for the past 100 years, it's really been in the Northern Hemisphere where people had money to buy. I mean, it's obvious, right? That's population with the money. That's where the breeding was. My grandfather, starting, with him and all the way going back. The problem is the population is growing not in that area. So plant breeding has been geared toward the, say 27 to 45 degrees north. And that whole area around the equator, and we haven't been breeding for that. So this is a problem. And we started a breeding station in Thailand about 10 years ago to try to help this. I know there's some people doing it in vegetables, but we need to breed for those other climates. Failure rates is another challenge. How do we reduce the failure rate with consumers now? So if you take that this will be interesting. You take that 28% that gets dumped, and you add on how many consumers don't plant the plants that they buy, it would go a lot higher, right? Or they buy it and it just dies, or they never plant it, or whatever. So failure rates are really, and we have to do better breeding to make sure that plants are tougher, which is what we're working on. We have to educate people to not put petunias in the heavy shade, this kind of stuff. So that's a big issue. Okay, this is one where I wish people would work more on this, but one of the problems in our industry is the way we talk, right? And the way we talk about plants. And what I mean by that is our terminology. We've done a lot of work with Seed Your Future, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the trying to get kids more interested in horticulture. And by the way, I checked in. Okay, I'll tell you this story. I checked in last night to the hotel, which is wonderful, by the way. Cavalry Hotel or Cavalry Court, Cavalry Court. And the woman behind the counter was absolutely delightful, quite intelligent, very quick, got my name, got this, telling me this, doing me this. And I was impressed with her. And I thought, wow, she's really sharp, you know. And so at the end, she says, what are you here for? And I said, I'm here to talk to students. And she said, what are you going to talk to students about? And I said, horticulture. And she said, tell me again what that is. And the reason I get that all the time, but the reason I was upset is because she was very bright and educated, and she came across as, and she didn't know what it meant. So it's a big issue, right? And we have to work on it. But part of the reason we can't get people in this industry is the way we talk. So this is my favorite sign. M.B.A. ventricosa itoprem. Boy, I really want to buy that plant, right? I just can't wait to buy that plant. It's got a great story behind it. But it's ridiculous. And even those in the industry don't even know what that means. So, you know, what's going on here? It's ridiculous. So this is something that somebody told me, and I like this. Something orange they don't have to plant every year. So what do? We talk like the first slide. We don't talk about this. So it's a big problem, and there's no way. When we first did Seed Your Future, we did tons of what do you call them, focus groups to get to find out what they were middle schoolers, to find out what middle schools thought of horticulture. Not one middle schooler in focus groups all across the country, all socioeconomic groups, not one middle schooler knew what it was, not one. We did work with the parents. Some of the parents knew what horticulture was, but they didn't want their kids to go into it because what they thought it was hot and sweaty people out mowing the lawn, right? They had a very negative view of horticulture. So part of the problem, I think, is the name. Think about it. Horticulture, it's kind of hard to pronounce. I mean, right? Like she said, tell me again what that is. It's kind of hard to pronounce, and it doesn't say anything. So for a long time, we said, okay, we've got to come up with a new word, right? And we did all this work, and we did all this thinking, and we did all these things. And the only one we could come up with was plantology, which I think is worse, frankly. So honestly, there really wasn't another word because it was either not inclusive enough, it didn't have all the different segments, or it was too whatever. So anyway, it's a problem. Plant breeding challenges, there's lots of these. Climate change, disease and insects, consumer. Do we breed for the consumer versus grower? This is an ongoing discussion in our company. Are we breeding for the consumer or the grower? Genetic engineering, CRISPR, what do we do with that? Offshore production, so we do a lot of work offshore. We produce in many countries, and it is very, very challenging, I have to say. It's very rewarding, but very challenging. So the year I was born, 66% of the people in the world were starving, according to the UN, like $2 a day or whatever, however they define it. Okay, 66% of the people in the world were hungry. What is it today? Does anybody know? What percent of the world's population today goes to bed every night hungry? 10? What?
Yeah. In US, it is about 13%, but I don't know what the word.
It's less than 9 in the world. It probably depends on how you define hunger. If you take it the same way from 66 to defining it the same way now, it's less than 9. Okay, why has that happened? It hasn't been because of aid, sending aid to different countries. It's because of the economy in those countries, mainly China, India, and Africa, has gone up, and there's people can afford food, right? Because they have jobs. And one of the things that I keep telling our employees is that we are part of that. We're a little teeny part of that. We're a part of that decline because we give people, we go to places in offshore that are very poor, that have good climate, because we have to go where the climate is. And we have to go to rural areas because we can't be in cities because we have to have a lot of greenhouses. So we go to rural areas in those places, and we give people jobs, and we create little towns, and we give them medical help, and we give them all this stuff, and then they make money, and then they can send their kids to school. And it's a wonderful thing, right? So that's the poverty graph, 66 to 10 or 9. It's still 9 is horrible, right? So, but if you don't understand where you came from and how you got to that decline, you're not going to get from 9 to 0, right? If you just say, oh, it's terrible, you'll never get from 9 to 0. If you say, oh, we did this, what can we do to get it? So, but we have a lot of challenges in offshore production. We have volcanoes, we have riots, we have all sorts of things, and it's really, really a challenge. And this makes us very nervous because there's no way that we can automate easily what we do in those countries. So if you want to have your product, we have to be in those countries for now, and it's getting more and more challenging. It's really tough. Green infrastructure. This is something that if I were young, I would be interested in this too. There's all sorts of, how you landscape public spaces is to me, it's just fascinating. One of the, does anybody know what this is? What? Yeah, Millennium Park in Chicago. Largest green roof in the world. Because underneath is railroads and parking. It's a green roof. And this is a fantastic, it's one of the most successful things Chicago's ever done. And the Lurie Garden is part of it. So anyway, that's green infrastructure. That's how Chicago used to look, and this is how it looks now. So it's just fascinating how you really do all these. So logistics. Okay, this is interesting. The cut flowers, 90% of our cut flowers that we buy in this country come from Colombia. Okay, so how do they come? They come on airplane, but guess what? I just found this out last week. So 20% of all those flowers now come by boat. And I was amazed. 20% is a lot. And it takes, a week to come on the boat. So what does that mean? You've got to breed flowers that have a longer shelf, because once they get here, they have to last the same as the ones on the plane, right? So it's a real interesting dilemma. You got to have those products that are the same. I was talking to a woman who told me this. I said, I don't want a product that's been on a boat for a week. And she said, well, you never know because it's there. So anyway, so that's logistics. There's a lot of logistics things that are, if you're into logistics, there's a lot to do in logistics. Okay, sustaining growth. Just quickly here, I'm got just a couple more minutes. The whole industry grew 20, 30, 40%, depending on how you define it, in COVID. The best virus we ever had. It's fantastic. We loved COVID. And so how do you keep that from going away? We haven't lost a bunch. We've lost about half, but we haven't lost it all. So this is a big challenge, how you keep those guys. So there are endless opportunities to make a change in this industry. I really believe that. See Your Future, I mentioned. It's a great resource, and I'm very involved in it, as some of you are as well. We have a very good internship program for kids between their junior and senior year. So you guys are too old, a lot of you, sorry, but I'll talk about it in the class tomorrow. So I just thought I'd go in the last 5 minutes or so. I thought I'd just go over our management philosophy because I thought that might be interesting to you a little. So we want to remain family-owned and professionally managed. That's very important. It doesn't have to be a family member who manages it, but it has to be professionally managed, whether it's by a family member or not. So that's super, super important. We organize as an armada. All those places that you saw on the map run their own show. They've all got an independent person. We don't, we are very decentralized. It's completely the opposite organization as our competitors who are centralized. We are totally decentralized. We have all these different companies, they operate in many ways very independently. We think we get better people that way because, you know, everybody wants to run their own show, right? So that's a philosophy it's got its challenges, but it's something we're sticking to. It's been that way for a long time. That's our armada. Those are all the heads of all the companies that you saw. I don't know if anybody have read this book, but we work very hard to be anti-fragile as a company, which means if you get into rough times, you actually get better, right? And so that's something we do a lot. We rely on the success. I talked about that. We don't believe in going overboard on things, and we try to define our core. That's the Starbucks core, or yeah. But you define your core, and then you try to grow out from the core instead of jumping out to something way that you don't understand, which everybody wants to do because it's like sexy and cool, right? So this is a very important part of our management philosophy. As is this, which is kind of the same thing. We practice tree ring growth, tree ring management. A very good book by a Japanese guy who says that, you know, trees that grow, I don't know if there's any foresters in the room, but trees that grow like they do in the Northwest. I was just there and saw these Douglas firs, and every ring is about equally spaced, right? Instead of, oh, huge ring one year, little ring, you know. So we try to have tree ring growth. We don't want huge growth one year and then no growth the next. We want it, which is different than a lot of companies. We have no long-term debt. That's a way to be anti-fragile. If you have a lot of long-term debt and you run into recession, you're screwed, right? So having no long-term debt means you can get through a lot of bad times or difficult times. We try to stay low-key and under the radar. In the industry, we're very, I'm here, right? We're very high-key. No, we're very, we're very high-key and we're very visible. But outside the industry, nobody knows about us. We're not on any lists and all that. Just stay under the radar because it's just better. And two things we look for in hiring: humility and curiosity. Those are the two things. If you're arrogant, you can't work for us, because arrogance means you already know the answers. You're not going to be open to new ideas. You got it all figured out. Forget it. We're not interested. And curious, of course, is super, super important. That's an obvious one, which we work every day. We don't believe in contracts. Of course, we have contracts, but we try to have few as well. We believe in handshakes. We've got people we've been working with for almost 100 years, totally on handshakes, no contracts. And these are the four things that I do all the time that I really believe in. That's super important. Work hard and be nice. What I tell all the things. And really, it's all about relationships. That's how things get done. You know. Okay, we're a great place to work certified. Just got recertified, best managed company. We're very proud of this because we worked very hard on these things, and it's very important to us. So that's what I had. I would love some questions because I think we have time for some questions, and I hope you have questions. I should have said that at the beginning, that I'm just going to stand here and have an uncomfortable silence until I get some questions. Yes.
So in relation to the roboticized or the animated or automated jobs, do you think that would take any value away from consumers that want their plants or their food, I guess, from humans instead of it being roboticized?
I think in the ornamental industry, really the only robotics is happening mostly at the grower level, right? You still have, I mean, you see where we have thousands of employees that treat everything by hand. We can't figure out how to automate it. It's not going to be automated. So it's a kind of a specific area. I think they won't know. If they did know, I don't know. You tell me, it wouldn't bother me, but maybe it would bother other people. What do you think? I never thought about that, actually.
Well, with what I wanna do, it would be like little to no automation. Uh, but that's also on a very small scale.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's affected, I mean, you've got the largest horticulture company in the world. So I get that it's different. I was curious if it was as big of a deal as I thought it was gonna be for me.
Okay, so in so we service, like, just in the US, we have like 10,000 growers. And 90% of them don't have, well, I shouldn't say that, don't have any automation. Not 90%. What percent have automation? These are all guys that work, that sell. What?
Very little.
Very little who what? Who do have automation. So most of the growers in the US don't have any automation. I'm talking about trends. So so no, most of them don't.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? Yes. What kind of design? Yeah.
And most favorite types of project that you've done with biophilic design?
Okay, so biophilic design is
Plant loving or like life loving places.
that uses plants in design? Yes, okay. You mean like green walls kind of thing? No. Yeah. Oh, biophilic design. Personally, no. But I'm trying to think really fast right now. No, but it's an interesting question. So maybe we've done it and haven't thought of it that way. I'm trying to think.
Apartments and they all have balconies.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if that's true. I mean, the way people are using plants in different parts of the world, or maybe, but here because of the climate, it's hard to use them outside that way. But I don't know. I'm gonna figure out what biophilic design is and have a better answer. I'm totally embarrassed by your question. Yes, Mason.
Thank you for your presentation. Pretty well, pretty good. I'm curious about.
Do I get my pecans?
You got two bags.
Curious what excites you, like trend wise. I know you talked about your angelonias in your front yard and plant intelligence, but is there like a specific plant that maybe you can't talk about that's exciting you about the introduction of it, or one of your favorite plants?
So we've got through the biotechnology, we've got some. In fact, I think I talked about it. We've got a plant that's. I know I'm not supposed to talk about this, but what the heck? It's a marigold that's red, like this red, not like red.
Is it maroon?
No, it's red, not maroon.
You know, that's our color, so we just want to make sure.
Oh, the maroon, no. Actually, maybe we could get one that's maroon. So, I mean, I'm still kind of shallow. I like visual things, you know. So, I get excited about new colors because I think they're important. I get excited about the things like the glow in the dark plants. I'm sorry. I mean, I just love that. I think it's a cool concept. So yeah, I like some of I love those things. And, yeah, so that's a good answer. Yes.
I love your front too. Thank you very much for making the trip from Chicago as well. But
Oh,
as I was listening to you and you're talking about the future, you didn't really talk about water issues. How
Right.
threatening and important
Right.
are water issues to you, and what are you doing about it?
so that's a very good question. I mentioned that a lot of our locations have all different kinds of sustainability issues, and some of them, like South Africa and Chile particularly, are very concerned about water. And so we're getting a lot of, we're doing a lot more on trying to figure out what to do about water. And that's our big push for sustainability for the next year, is to try to, we're going to have this internal summit on water, and try to figure out what to do about it. There was a very interesting, I don't know if you guys went to Cultivate and sat, you know, the not the Hort Scholars, the program that where they have like 10 people every year that they, HRI, the HRI thing. My daughter was in the first class and then they just had the second class. And Jennifer Newar gave a presentation on water. And she came to me afterwards and talked about it. She thinks it's like the issue that we all should be dealing with. And it's actually, I should have had something in there. But yes, but it's going to take time for people to really figure it out and get concerned about it.
Are you taking it into consideration when you're thinking about breeding?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
defining your processes?
Yes, because drought tolerance is a big goal of our plant breeding for a whole bunch of reasons. Not just because it'll sell in drought tolerant areas, but it just uses less water, and it'll if it's drought tolerant, it'll go in a lot of different areas. So it's a big breeding project. It's a big breeding, not project, it's a goal. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Second, I was curious, you talked about all the relationships. How do you guys know about?
How do we know what?
So like,
Yeah, so, yeah, that's a good question. So for example, we had to find a new location to produce our cuttings because Guatemala was getting difficult and all sorts of problems. So we did a study. We had a team go out. They visited, I even forgot where they went, like Dominican Republic. They went to Mexico. They went to all these locations, and they had this criteria, climate, labor availability, friendliness to business, whatever. And they picked Nicaragua 10 years ago. And we're the only American company there, by the way, because the government will tell you don't go to Nicaragua, but we went, and it's been successful for us. So we have criteria, and we go around and look, and a lot of it is climate. Has to be really the perfect climate for whatever we're going to produce. So that really narrows it down. We buy land that not from farmers, maybe from farmers, but just whatever land is available. There's usually land. Yeah.
Excellent presentation. I think I also like the way you are addressing sustainability while you are making big business at the global level. I like the plant purpose from the plant view. But at the same time, I think we impact a lot on the life and health. What about plants for health and life?
That was that's exactly what I'm talking about. For health, I mean, it should have been in the talk. If it wasn't, it should be there. You mean to make you healthier?
Yeah, like mental health, for example,
Yeah.
mental health and other parts of the horticultural health.
Absolutely. I mean, most of the time when we talk about plants for purpose, the first thing we say is the mental and physical benefits of plants. And if it didn't come across, I'm sorry, but that's absolutely right. I believe in that very strongly. I see it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. That means cut.
No, but I was told I can ask the last question.
Okay.
It's a loaded question.
Okay.
Horticulture and its future as a discipline is somewhat in jeopardy because 20 years ago, we had over 100 departments of horticulture in the United States. Only 23 remain right now. But outside the US, are you seeing similar trends that, or as I understand, the industry is still called horticulture, that term is still utilized. Have you seen that also, or is it just a US specific phenomenon?
Well, it's so different. I mean, if you look at Europe, it's just part of it. It's not the same issue. It's so ingrained in them that they think differently about it. In the Asian countries, I don't know. They're not. It's not as dire as it is here. I don't know why. It's not as bad. I mean, I just think, do we have problems getting people in other countries? And we kind of don't. So I guess it's, now that I think about it, it's worse here. Okay. Okay, thank you. This is the reason I came.